Good evening. My name is McKenzie Lyon, and I'm a senior here at Hawaii Preparatory Academy. Before I begin, I must give a trigger warning to you all. In this talk, I will cover topics surrounding sexual violence and rape. If you feel the need to step out or feel the need to at any point, you are welcome to do so. I also want to acknowledge that I will only be referring to information pertaining to the United States in this talk. In recent years, we as a society have seen a shift in how we handle the stigma surrounding sexual assault victims. While still ever present, with movements such as Me Too taking over our social media and constant coverage as stars and athletes continue to tell their stories, I believe the culture has changed. To a large degree, we have become more open, believing victims rather than silencing them. But with the rise of acceptance also comes the rise of victim blaming, slut shaming, and harassment. These are all aspects of what we know today as the cycle of rape culture, or a set of social beliefs about sexual violence that serve to enable sexual violence. I was in 7th grade when I witnessed this cycle for the first time. I had just moved to the island and I began to attend public middle school. About halfway through the year, a boy in my class began to sexually harass my 2 friends and I, touching our breasts and bottom as he walked by, comments in passing. One day, my best friend, victim to the same boy, broke down, unable to continue dealing with it. We went to our favorite teacher, who directed us to the vice principals to make an official report. One at a time, they brought each of us into a room occupied by the 3 female vice principals and the guidance counselor. The latter held my hand as I sobbed while relaying each related moment with this boy and a few others. She told me everything I was feeling was normal and that I was safe, and then she thanked me for being brave enough to share this information with them. But as I was walking out, my vice principal warned me not to tell anyone what I had just reported, as they didn't want him to face any scrutiny. Which, to a point, you can understand. As an educator, you don't want to put any of your students in harm's way, especially based only on a story. But I walked around in the weeks to follow as what happened began to spread, as it does in middle school, and was told repeatedly by both girls and boys that it was my fault, and that I had been asking for it by wearing leggings to school every day. After conducting an investigation in which the administration decided that based on the boy's denial and the lack of videographic evidence that it had simply not happened, I couldn't help but feel like his livelihood and their desire to avoid a sexual harassment case had been placed over my well-being. In the end, the school's way of handling the situation was to never call our parents, and weeks later, to bring the police in to do a presentation on, ironically, the consequences of harassing your classmates. At this time, I had already been battling depression for the first time, and this situation put me on a path to oversized clothing and intense emotional struggles for the next year and a half, as I continued to sit in class with the boy every day. After this happened, going to school was even harder than it had been before, because it felt like eyes were on me, waiting for me to admit that real abuse that had caused me so much pain had simply never happened. While my story is tame in comparison to that of many victims of sexual violence, the trauma it created is not. This is because it follows the aforementioned cycle to a T, that being, an incident of sexual violence occurs, gets reported, the public blames the survivor rather than the perpetrator, and no punishment is administered. We live in a patriarchal society, one in which men dominate our power structures and are implicitly given status over women, and it has a great impact on the way survivors are treated and abusers are created. With a crime as taboo as sexual assault, in a country where up until the 1970s it was legal for a husband to rape his wife at his will, and rape wasn't even considered rape if the victim and perpetrators were both men, it makes sense that we would be slow at prioritizing the well-being of survivors, who are disproportionately female, in order to protect the perpetrators, who are disproportionately male. In this country, where according to the organization RAINN, only 2.5% of rapists will ever see jail time, and only about 30% of rapes get reported in the first place, how do we change this? How do we change a culture that protects the right to cause harm but not to heal? I believe there are 2 ways. For one thing, when as a society we silence the emotions of men, we are actively shaping people into abusers. When boys are brought up to be aggressive and to never express pain, it becomes explicit to them that their emotions are equivalent to weakness. For some, this can lead to a sense of lost control when they experience emotional things, and committing acts of sexual violence allows them to take back some of that control. Of course, this extreme is not the case for most men, but these socially constructed standards are harmful for all. By raising our boys with an understanding that it is okay to cry and that empathy and compassion are just as important as their counterparts, we create a safer world for everyone. Secondly, we absolutely must stop using phrases like she asked for it and boys will be boys. We must stop blaming assaults on victims' clothing or levels of sobriety and start blaming the rapists and abusers who commit them. We must be intentional with our language. Rather than saying she was raped, say he raped her. Because when we center our conversations around survivors rather than perpetrators, we allow and encourage it to keep happening. When we victim blame, we prevent people from speaking up, and we prevent those responsible for the pain from being held accountable. What you'll notice from mine and stories similar is that the vast majority of the trauma comes not from the abuse itself, but how it is handled afterward. We live in a fast-paced world, desensitized to the severity of these situations, and one that makes fostering a place in which survivors can find conditions for healing impossible. Before we can improve the ever-present problem of rape and sexual assault, there has to be room made for the pain to exist, both of survivors and potential perpetrators, without it getting thrown back in their faces. Thank you.